Since 2019, I've read almost 150 books, and most of them have been about marketing, business, or personal development in some sort of form. These 5 books have made a profound impact on not only my life and how I see the world, but also in how I've grown my business. And for the record, in that time frame, I went from a college dropout to being able to grow a ghostwriting agency that's doing $23,000 a month USD. So I would say these have had a pretty good influence on that journey. Before we get into that list though, make sure you like this video and subscribe so that it gets pushed in the algorithm, more people see it, more lives get changed, I feel better about myself. Book number 1, Snow Leopard by the Category Pirates. This book absolutely changed my life. I first read it in late August of 2022 when I realized that I was doing pretty well with the marketing agency I was working at, and I was still doing stand-up comedy on the side. This book was one of the main reasons why I decided to drop stand-up comedy and pursue marketing full-time. Well, I also had some friends who did stand-up comedy who encouraged me to quit, but they know that they're appreciated, so I won't mention that here. The main point of the book is that you need to stand out online by creating a unique angle, and the highest form of doing so is by creating a category of one. You're not looking for blue oceans where there's openings in the marketplace for you to go and make money in. You're creating an entirely new ocean yourself. You're creating a new category. And the main example that they give in this book is Netflix. Netflix wasn't better cable. It wasn't cable with a twist. It wasn't a better TV service. It was an entirely new category. TV at that time, and I hope you are old enough to remember what it was, involved you having to watch your favorite TV shows at a certain time. You had to either record it if you couldn't make it, or tune in at a certain time, and you had to watch commercials. That's how TV was since its beginning. But Netflix came along and said, that's not how you need to see the world. We see the world in a completely different way, and we're creating an entirely new category. That's how the streaming service game was born. Instead of having to wait to see when your favorite shows are on or having to stay up late or record it, it's on the platform and you can just watch it whenever you want. And the nice thing about owning a category, the nice thing about creating a category is you're seen as the category king. How many people do you know have Netflix and bitch about it? The show selection isn't great, the movie selection isn't great. Every time you want to watch something and you look it up, they autofill it, but then they give you movies like that movie because they don't actually have it. So why don't they just fucking tell you that when you're fucking searching it up in the search bar? Despite all that, do you know who the #1 streaming service is year in, year out? Netflix. Even though they've had to change prices, even though people keep sharing their passwords, even though people are frustrated with it, because it created the category, it's the first thing we think of when we think of watching TV and movies on streaming services. It also talks about why you should never be better than other people. You should focus on creating your own thing. Example, Pepsi. Pepsi's always going to be #2 to Coca-Cola because it tries to be better than Coca-Cola. And when you try to be better than something, you're naming the thing that you're trying to beat. So you're always comparing yourself to that thing and subconsciously communicating to your audience that it is the #1 product or service in that industry. Pepsi's always going to be in Coke's shadow as long as it talks about it being better than Coke. Crave is always going to be in Netflix's shadow because it's always going to be competing with Netflix. So the way this relates to your business is that you need to create a category of one for yourself in order to serve a specific group of people. Now, you don't need to go outthink the room and create an entirely new industry or an entirely new platform or app or whatever, but the simplest formula that I use in order to get as unique as possible without outthinking the room and fucking losing your mind because you're not sure if it's unique enough, is to solve a specific problem for a specific person with a specific mechanism that gives specific results. That's how you create a unique transformation that sticks out in a world of copywriters, landing page writers, VSL writers, social media managers, people who go broad with one skill. That's how you create your own Netflix without needing to, get a bunch of venture capital and almost go bankrupt and have Blockbuster think that you're a stupid idea before cramming on them in transition while they try to draw the charge decades later. That whole thing. Book number 2, Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. I always tell people who are trying to grow their online business, whether it's through marketing, whether it's through sales, whatever, to read this book. The thesis of this book is that you are not the hero of your clients' journeys. They are. So you need to stop focusing about yourself and what you do well and everything going on at your company and what you offer, and you need to start focusing on their needs. People buy things to improve their lives, and they're going to buy your service if you can prove it serves their biggest burning problems. In order to sell at a high rate, in order to create a successful business, you need to serve a specific target market, find out what their biggest, most burning problems are that they're willing to pay to solve, and give them the solution for it. In that book, they talk about Tidal, which, if you don't remember, was a platform created by Jay-Z for artists to put their music on. The entire point of Tidal was that the artists are the most important part of the music industry. It positioned them as the heroes, which was met with massive blowback from the fans. So because the fans didn't feel valued and they're the ones actually paying those artists' bills, even though Tidal had massive names backing it, it failed. Now, contrast that with Spotify, whose single mission is to make listening to music as easy, fun, and tailor-made to you and your wants as possible. Spotify succeeded, Tidal didn't, and there's a reason for that. Book number 3, 10x is easier than 2x by Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. This book is one I revisit every couple of months because I believe it's that transformational. The idea is that in order to grow your business, you shouldn't think about doubling or going 2x, you should think about 10x. Because when people think about going 2x or doubling, they think about doing more. Can I write more? Can I create more content? Can I make more sales? Can I do more? But you forget one thing. There's only so many hours in the day. So by doing more, eventually you're gonna run into a limit. There's only so much you can do every minute, every hour, every day. And if you focus on doing more, you're gonna burn yourself out and become super inefficient. And you're gonna fucking hate what you do at some point. So instead, you need to think 10x, because thinking 10x requires you not to think about how can you do more, but it requires you to think what systems, what changes, and most importantly, who do I need to help me get to that point? So if you're making 5K a month, instead of asking how can I get to 10K a month, ask yourself how can I get to 50K a month? Because it requires you to look deeper at your target market's problems. It requires you to think deeper about your systems and how efficient you're being. It requires you to focus only on the things you do extremely well, and it requires you to find people who can help you build that business. The reason why 10x is easier than 2x is because when you elevate your level of thinking from how can I do more to who can help me achieve this vision, you're left doing the things you do really well. And you let other people who do other things really well manage those things in your business. And so the journey actually becomes easier because you have other people you can lean on and you're only doing what you're good at. Another key point of this book is that you've gone 10x multiple times in your life already. Think about when you were a baby and you're crawling and you're learning how to walk. Going from can't fucking move to walking to running is a massive change in our life. And while it might seem trivial because, well, you were a fucking baby, it's important to remember because you didn't give up when you found out that you couldn't walk properly at first. You just kept on getting up and trying to walk. When you ran around as a kid, you didn't think, I've never done this before, or how do I know if I can do this? You just kept on running. And I'm sure that if you looked back at your own life, when you weren't a child, you can walk yourself back to a point where you did make a 10x jump, proving you can do it again. For myself, I can think of multiple instances of this. So my business now is doing really well. We make about 23K a month USD, which is pretty damn good. And so if I were to divide that by 10 to where I was making 2 to 3K USD a month, I can remember very specifically where I was at that point in my life. That was about 4 years ago, and I was working a bunch of random journalism jobs at a radio station, writing for random sports teams, and picking up part-time jobs at the mall. So if I reverse engineer how I got from that point to this point, it shows me that I'm capable of it, and it shows that there is a road to get from where I am now to 10xing that production. Amazing book. I highly recommend you read it over and over. Book number 4, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. This one's amazing because it doesn't just teach you wealth principles that are practical and logical, but it teaches you how to analyze your thought patterns and your subconscious mind, which are things that are vastly ignored and underrated in today's society. There's a great quote from Carl Jung, and he says, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will guide your life and you will call it fate." The point of Secrets of the Millionaire Mind is all about analyzing what your deeply held beliefs about money and wealth are and learning how to replace the ones you don't want with ones that actually help your goals. The whole point of the book is to understand that money is not bad, money is not evil, money is a tool that you get to choose what you do with when you earn it, and how to program your mind to attract more money in your life to build a life that you're proud of. So for example, how did your parents talk about money when you were younger? How did you see money as a result of that because you heard your parents talking about it? What did people around you say? What did people at school say? How did it shape your decisions in the past? And how will it shape your decisions in the future if you don't change those thoughts? A key example that he talks about is your wealth thermostat. Everybody has a wealth thermostat that determines how much money they are comfortable making. Some people's is lower than others, some people's is higher than others. Until you understand where your wealth comfort zone is, you will always find a way to fall back there, no matter how much money you make or how much money you lose. There's one example in the book where he talks about a couple who makes a lot of money, and no matter what they seem to do, they always fall back to living paycheck to paycheck. And the reason for that all lies in their subconscious mind. How do they view money? How did they view money growing up? How did their parents view money? Now, there's one more quote in this book that I'll mention. I'm not sure if it's related to the overall thesis of the book, but I think it's fucking hilarious and I love telling people it, so I'll say it before moving on to book number 5. He says, "I hate it when people ask, what's more important, money or love?" That's like saying, what's more important, your arm or your leg? They're both important. They're both equally important for different things. Yes, if you don't have love in your life, you'll probably feel unfulfilled as a person. But if you don't have money, you also lose a lot of agency. So money is important. Don't be afraid of it. Go out, make a ton of it. And book number 5, The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. This book is great for breaking down how tiny actions done consistently over time make a massive difference in the overall big picture. There are a couple examples that he uses to illustrate this. The first one is this question: what would you rather have, $1 million right now or a penny doubled every single day for 30 days? And because you're not a fucking idiot and you understand that this is a trick question, you pick the penny. But I'm sure it'll blow your mind that the penny option ends up being over $10 million. And the best part, it doesn't even hit $1 million until about day 27. The point of that is when you take small actions that move the needle consistently, you won't see massive returns until time goes on. But if you keep doing them, after a certain amount of time, they become huge. And when you look back at where you first started, you won't even recognize who you were. The second analogy he uses to illustrate this are two boats sailing next to each other. If you have two boats sailing parallel next to each other, and one of them changes course by just 1 degree, at first, if you're watching them from a bird's eye view, it might not seem like much, but after a while, they are nowhere close to each other. Small changes, massive results, as long as you take them consistently. I read that book at a time in my life where I didn't really have much going on and I was still trying to figure out who I was. It was the summer of 2020. The Rone had just hit everybody really hard. And even though I was working remotely at an agency and I still had work, I had no idea what I was really doing. And that book reassured me because I thought if I can just do things every day that move the needle and help me get better, in a couple of years, I'll be in a massively better position. And here I am in 2024 telling you, yeah, it worked. So that's it, guys. Let me know if you've read these books in the comment section, and if you have, which one's your favorite and why. As always, like the video, subscribe. I appreciate you watching. And if you want more dope content like this, you can watch the next video right there. Talk soon.